Right. So, Jack, I would like to know a little bit about your situation and your experience with mental health. What drew you to doing this talk in the first place, this platform? What's your experience with the elite and your association with darkness and the elite?
Yeah. Um, well, I guess if there's an elite part of it, I was a 20-year Navy SEAL, SEAL officer. So I went through school, and that's kind of what I wanted to do since I was about 16 years old. And I did that for 20 years. And obviously, with the current state of the last 20 years, was involved in the global war on terrorism. So there was probably a lot of increased stress on the entire military, and certainly special ops. And, with that increased stress in our line of work, like a lot of first responders or anyone that, works with their body as a main proponent of what you do, there's tons of physical stress, and then there's also tons of mental stress. And I think that, most people associate PTSD, maybe anxiety, depression, the latest term, right, that kind of came from the NFL, but the concussive events of either TBI, traumatic brain injury. So all of these things come together in my career, and certainly I'm not immune to it. And I would think that, as human beings, as I always say, no one's immune to it. You think of your mental health just like your physical health. But unfortunately, in our society, our obsession with physical health has promulgates the news waves and the psyche of everybody, maybe more than our mental health. And I think it's a better position to look at mental health in that same way, right? You have to take care of it. You have to feed it, hopefully positively. But it's always there, and we all deal with it. So in the course of my career and my upbringing, having been an abused child, it was there, and I didn't really realize it. And as I went through my career, at first I chose a lot of bad coping mechanisms, alcohol and opioids. And that just led to, what I call a pretty typical spiral. And thank God, with help and professionals and just a willingness to want to be better, I got myself to a decent state. And I love to share that story because I think so many other people have similar stories, no matter their background. And I believe that it's not as common to discuss as it should be in our society, so that people can feel free about getting help or address the issues, you know. And so I just kind of use my platform and background to discuss that. I'm very passionate about it. I'm a survivor, if you want to say that, myself. And I don't think anybody's immune to it. So that's kind of my background. And I feel that with my podcast, The Dark Side of Elite, that you actually see it a lot more openly, maybe in people that strive to do maybe extreme things or get really good in their profession. So it gives us a platform to talk about it. But the reality is, it's not exclusive to elites. It's every single human being.
Well, I think I'm
And
born for
Tiffany
this.
too. Tiffany's
Yeah,
probably going through some stuff.
yeah, of course, because like attract like, you know.
Right.
So I I did kind of the same thing with like my journey with mental health issues. Is not until you're way down the rabbit hole you don't realize I actually probably do have something going on to it, because I'm projecting so much. And projecting just means basically like protecting yourself and deflecting stuff. So I want us to have this talk as if like somebody who's maybe not self-aware, maybe this is going to be their first conversation they're listening to of like, what actually is mental health? Why is it important? And then the importance of it is if we are not in tune and in check and aligned with ourselves and responsible for ourselves, then that's what makes that's the source of everything being so messed up. So Tiffany, I'm going to tell Tiffany about the first time I realized that these elite people move different. So I'm going to leave a lot of details out, but long story short, I was talking to a guy and he one day just showed up at my job and he had a bracelet worth like 3 times more than my first house. And I was just like, I call my girlfriend. He's like out there and I'm like, dude, there's this guy out there with this like serious bracelet. And then I'm in the office, I'm sitting there and she's like calling my mom. My mom's like, don't you dare get in the car. But it was just like, that's what kind of released the Kraken of being like, whoa, how did he even find me? How did he know where I'm at? Like all these things that I got exposed to realizing, okay, there's levels of people moving so differently. And I know, Tiffany, girl, that's what you're into too. But it was interesting. And I have like, I was really attracted to like fast paced, intense, crazy. And that's what started that whole thing with me. And I made a lot of bad choices, just like you, of not realizing what I was already dealing with. And then when I put myself in bad situations, I set myself up for failure. And, you resort to drugs or drinking or partying or whatever. But that's why it's important for people to be self-aware and to do this inventory of, maybe just like you said, it's just as important to realize that our mental health is just as or more than important than our physical health. And especially with the times, especially with what's going on right now, I think people wouldn't be reacting the way they do if they were more self-aware. If everybody young wasn't like dopamine addicted to social media and locked in the house and realizing, okay, the importance of maybe getting out, getting some sunshine, riding your bike, not being on your phone all the time, like setting yourself up with good habits, being self-aware to where when problems happen, you know how to maneuver properly, get involved in counseling, stuff like that. And that's why I'm so thankful for guys like you and Eric, who's the CEO of Same Here, because it's these dialogues and these coffee talks with me and you and our crazy friends that say, look, like, you do need to pay attention to this. This is important because every decision and action that you do stems from how you feel about yourself, what you know about yourself, and then having, a support system in place that's aware of what you're going through, to where they check you when you start getting squirrely. So I'm so thankful to guys like you. And I really do think that you and Eric are heroes. And I just want to thank you first off for doing stuff like this, because it's these conversations that reduce the stigma of, mental health. So
Yeah, I mean, well, number one, I appreciate that. And I think you said a lot of good things there. I mean, I don't think, obviously, when we're younger, I mean, we're completely self-aware, and that comes at different times in everyone's life. And we realize, at the root, like, we're kind of on our own. I mean, we leave our initial group, whether that's a decent family, a bad family, foster parents or whatever. I mean, and now you're kind of out in the world. And I think that, at that point, we becoming self-aware is important. But I also think that, we bring whatever years of stuff, I call it, or I'll call it crap. When I consult, I always tell people, let's get over ourselves. We all have crap.
right.
How we deal with it defines us. But, at that point, I think where we struggle is we don't do an inventory. And I'm not talking like for somebody that's an addict. I'm just saying, who are we? What are we passionate about? What makes us happy? What are the things that, I don't agree with, and I don't, they don't cause me enjoyment, or, as you said, maybe put me into bad situations, right? And one of the things that I try to help people do, and I know that it was important to me, was sit down and define what are those kind of core tenets, that are me.
Mm-hmm.
And at some level, we have to understand we only control what we control. I mean, there's people currently in our country right now losing their minds over a bunch of stuff they have zero control over. But yet we take that on, and then it makes our lives more complicated. It makes our mental health, go up and down. And so one of the start points to self-awareness is understanding what you value and what you bring to this human endeavor, right? And then from there, we start to build around it, hopefully positive choices, and we start to guard against negative choices or negative situations. But it's very easy, especially in our capitalistic society, with our girl Tiffany. I mean, she might be enamored right now with money and fame
Right.
and things like that. And maybe she'll be able to handle that. Maybe not. I mean,
So,
I've gone through my journey, and I can tell you I would be the worst person with fame. Like, I'm not built, nor do I want that.
right.
And that's a limit now I put on myself. If it happened, I'd have to find a way to deal with it, right? But I know that it would severely impact my happiness and my mental health. So, find what you value.
How old were you when you started to have those thoughts of being like, okay, how old were you when you started your self-awareness mental health quest? Like, when did that happen? After the military or during?
I would say my mother, again, she was abused as well, and so she ended up becoming a counselor. So, that was in my life growing up, meaning that just the kind of typical conversations. And I would say, based on being a little bit older now, I probably had more of that talk around me than most young people.
Okay.
So I was aware of it, but I wasn't like involved in my own journey. And so I was really lost with emotions, especially anger. I'm a highly competitive person, and I would have floods of emotions where I had a real hard time dealing with anger. I would also say, like anybody, if I got nervous, I just tended to lash out as my primary mechanism. And I think it's kind of common in a lot of males early in our society. Um, and it wasn't until I was in the military. I first got sober at 22. For
Congratulations.
Yeah, for 10 years. And then I went, then I got onto the opioids because of injuries, and then that led me to drinking again. And so I really didn't start positively attacking it, so to speak, other than drinking. But that, stopping drinking doesn't necessarily cure mental health ails. Um, and I would say in my mid 30s, I started to really think about it and think about change, and that I didn't like the current situation I was in with depression and anxiety. And then if you've, listened to my podcast, I mean, I essentially try to alcohol induce suicide out of depression and survivor guilt in front of my family. And then that was kind of the all stop. Thank God my wife and children had the courage to kind of, give me the all stop. And then from there, even though I had been trying to work on it, part of my self plan was bad choices of dealing with it. Um, and so, by my late 30s, I started taking it real serious. And in my life, it became the number one priority, and it is today. So, priority of effort on what I work on, that's number one. So whether it be how I react to a conversation with somebody, how I react to business dealings, or whether I want to take on clients, I do everything around my mental health stability. And probably second to that is addiction. And then, family's right there. And that may seem weird to some people, but you know, what I found with addiction and mental health issues is that if you want to change your current circumstance, they have to be not 20 years. I'll call it, I guess that's 20 years. I'm bad with math. They were probably not even on the priority list. Do you know what I mean? It was just compete, be a SEAL, hopefully be a good SEAL, serve the country, mission first.
Always looking forward because you don't want to deal with it. It's too too much.
Yeah. And I mean, we can justify a lot of things. I mean, as my father always says, you know, justification is a two-way street. You can justify great things and you can justify crappy things.
Wow.
So for me, it had to go first. And how do you get there? I mean, it's simple. And you and I have talked about it before. I mean, you have to realize I have a problem, or I want to change my current circumstance.
I think like the phrase that everybody needs to ask, especially when they're listening, is like, are you at that phase where you're like, something's got to give? Or I don't know what I want, but I know that I don't want this. I know that I don't want this environment. I'm not subscribing to the thought that I am my environment. I want something different. And sometimes when you are going through it or you're in the thick of it, you don't realize that you're in the thick of anything because you're just surviving. That's just your reality. So you have to just like honestly look around and be like, okay, what do I want? And am I happy with this? And am I happy with this thought process? And if it's no, then that's when you need to be understanding to yourself, like, okay, it's time to go to the mental gym and I just need to relearn life. I need to relearn neurolinguistic programming, which is like, for somebody who doesn't know what that is, who's listening, it's when you're like consciously restructuring your thoughts. So do you know what that is?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, Eric is one of my heroes in talking about that, discussing that with Same Here. And so there's a lot of self-help things you can do. And then of course there's professional help. And one of the ways, and I'll let you roll with that, is that, you know, if you are stuck in it, a great friend of mine talks about, take the 5 people that you hang out with the most and look at them. And that is a good idea of where you're at. Like 100%. Just the people that you surround yourself with. So if I, an outsider, come in and see these 5 people, I mean, they're a direct reflection of your life and what you've got going on. And sometimes we surround ourselves with 5 bad people every day that have nothing to do with where we want to go. And therefore it shields us from understanding who we really are. And again, where we want to go. So, you know, take a look at the 5 people you hang out with the most and see if that's really where you want to be.
Yeah, Tiffany. So look around.
Yeah.
Me and Jack are shining stars. Go with the program. It's okay, but we're not going to leave you down. No man left behind, right?
Is she doing okay right now? She's not sweating yet, is she? Is she listening?
She's hyperventilating. She knows it's going to be getting real, but you know what? Something's got to give, you know? Something's got to give.
I love the straw with the coffee. I've never tried that before.
You know, this always happens, and I got this from a girlfriend of mine, and I drink a few cups a day. Like, I try not to do more than 2. I'm not like crazy about the coffee, but like when I first wake up, do it, and then before the gym. But because I drink, I mean, when you think about the math of 2 cups every day, that's actually a lot of coffee, and I don't want to stain my teeth. So I put it behind my teeth so that, you know, through years of doing 2 cups a day, I think it will stain my teeth. So I'm just trying not to have a not nice smile. But yeah.
Well, coffee's not the worst thing in the world you can put in your body.
I know, right? But I just, you know, I don't want to like mess up teeth. So I'm dealing with the caffeine, but actually caffeine's not so bad. But actually I do love coffee. Sorry.
No, I love it.
So actually, with Eric and a few other nonprofits, I do sell coffee.
Oh, cool.
So we're at Samba Latte right now because I sell Samba Latte coffee. And what's so cool, what Eric and I are doing, and why I was so excited to talk to you guys is because what Heroes is we're a team that helps businesses and causes with the causes narrative. And I've gone through mental health issues and why I've struggled and I've relearned life because I didn't know I had it. And I'm a huge advocate for being self-aware, having these talks, sitting down with your girlfriend Tiffany and being like, look, you need to know what's going on and this is why. You're going to make worse and worse decisions. So anyway, this is why I'm excited about what I'm doing and why I'm personally very passionate about it is because I've gone through these issues and I love talking to people like you who have as well. And we're selling coffee and it's super good. And the founder, his name's Luis. He is the dopest guy. He's from Brazil and he's like totally the American dream and works super hard and struggles, but still has so much faith in us and collectively our system and your attitude and having faith and also having hope. And that's something that I also want to talk about with when you're going through stuff, you have to realize that you need to have hope in yourself. You need to have hope and just realizing that you need to go to the mental gym, get help, talk to people like me and you who have gone through this and make an action plan, you know? And if you can say anything to people that are going through it, what do you think is the most important? Hope, faith, discipline? What's your best advice for someone who's like self-aware being like, dude, this ain't working for me right now, Tiffany?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's all, but I'll break it down this way. I mean, first of all, one of the reasons I speak out on it is that because at some level that we discussed earlier, it's hidden, but not really, because again, everybody has this. But when you get to the specifics of yourself, the first thing to realize is you're not the first person with issues. You're not going to be the last. It's simply part of the human condition and human life, and everybody deals with it differently. And so when you realize, you're not the only person, that should give you hope, right? Because other people have overcame, lots of stuff. And oftentimes if you discuss it, you find out a lot of the crap that you've built in your head, it's by far not the worst thing you're going to hear if you reach out. You hear other people and you're like, as I like to say, my God, I'm not that fucked up.
Right.
But yet you're beating yourself up over that for, maybe years.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then I would say, SEAL team helped me a lot with, we're very goal oriented, micro goal oriented, maybe minute by minute, maybe day by day. And so, realizing that there's other people out there, that gives me hope. Realizing that I can and I will, and I have to say that to myself a lot, gives me faith that if I do the process and I do prescribe things, if they're through self-study or a program of counselors or a program, say like the AAs of the world, that I can recover, right? Because it isn't a death sentence, mental health or addiction. It's not like cancer where there is possibly no cure. There is a cure for this stuff. Right. But you have to be willing to take the cure. And so that really helped me. So setting those micro goals, and I know when I got help both through self and professional, then I quit trying to be the smartest guy in the room. And I followed what they said, because in the military, I always say, like, people have these views of the military, but at its core, the military is very simple. There's prescribed standards and there's prescribed way of doing things. If you do them and do them well, you're going to be really good and satisfied in your military career. And that is something that I never tried to outthink the military system. I just did it, and I did it to the best of my ability. And so I just took that towards my mental health and addiction. And if the professional said, hey, do this, fill out a list of things you're upset about, fill out a list of the coping mechanisms that you've used. Hey, think about some better coping mechanisms. I did that. And, I went through the first time I got sober, I did use AA. The second time I used the steps of AA, but I don't participate in AA daily, because that's the other thing. There's many ways when it comes to addiction to beat it. And not every shoe fits for everybody. So the broad understanding, I think that there's many ways, is also helpful to people, because I had a real block with AA based on my childhood that I didn't really realize was there. And so I use those core tenets, but I'm not personally going to meetings every day, but I don't not say that doesn't work, because I know millions of people that do.
Yeah.
And so again, hope, faith, and then sure, discipline. I mean, just don't outthink it. I mean, there's prescribed ways, but I would say you are unique. We are all individual people. You have to experiment with the ways that work for you. And one of the key ways to do that is to get in a community like what we're doing, and to hear different perspectives and talk, and then, go out and try some things and go, that makes me feel better than yesterday. Okay. Right. Keep that one, keep that tool,
So something that you made me think of when you're talking was, I want to say this for people that are going through it, and just what really paradigm shifted my experience was me realizing that you have to have faith and hope in yourself, but also in God. And I was listening to this church called From the Heart Ministries.org, and they are so bomb. And if you can listen to this series about hope and restoration, you have to understand, like, especially when you're a child, you can't control the cards that are dealt to you. But as an adult, it's such an adventure to realize that it's like you almost literally have to trick your brain into realizing that, okay, I don't want my adulthood to be like my childhood, and I can control that.
Yeah.
And how do I logistically figure out a way to change myself through neurolinguistic programming, group counseling, whatever. But if anybody can go onto that from theheartministries.org, I'm telling you guys, it's even on YouTube, it's free. That is what really changed my life. And when you realize like how you're susceptible to sin, of course you're going to make bad choices, because you are set up to. Your environment's garbage. You don't have a support system. But I do think that we do need to be aware that if we do have that grounding within God versus ourselves, and like this woke culture and that, whatever, but we need to have a grounding in God, because what happens, Jack, as a father, what do you think your number one role is as a father?
Well, I think it's to be a good example, to model the behaviors that I want my young people around me, my children, and anybody else I help to be.
Right. So I would say that's kind of like an identity giver. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
So if you don't have that example and that grounding, of course the kids are going to act up. Of course we're going to be acting fools, because we don't have that example. We don't have that knowledge. We don't have that structure. So when you do have that structure and grounding, you realize what your values and self-esteem are, and then your beliefs are under that. And so when problems do arise, you do remember who you are, and you have that checks and balance of, okay, I'm not going to be acting a fool, or like letting my emotions, like you said, letting my emotions drive me. So yeah.
I mean, I think you're right. I think that especially when it comes to addiction, and again, it's not all or none, but you see a lot of belief in a higher power, whether it's God or it's another form of religion or just a spiritual belief. I mean, I was raised Catholic. I'm still Catholic. My kids are raised Catholic, but I would say that beyond Catholicism, which is a religion, my recovery, my mental health is based on a spirituality that I'm not in charge, that there's a higher power out there. My son, when he was real little, actually used to call God Got, G-O-T. And so when I think of a higher power, I just think of that through a child's mind. And so, yeah, I mean, and I know there's people out there that, don't have that belief, but I would challenge them to realize that human existence, and again, to go from a place I don't like with my mental health or my behavior to a place I want to like, is spiritual growth, however you define it. And it's important. And I know for me, it certainly was in the military that I really, I was around people that lost their lives or got maimed. And I oftentimes, again, had that survivor's guilt of like, why me? Like, why am I here? And what I found out? Like, I'm here for a reason. I don't have to understand the reason, but I have a choice to do good or bad with the time I'm here. And so, again, choice is a very important word in all of this, which is I choose to use it for good, however long I'm on this
Right.
planet.
Yeah. No, I think we all
Or
have
at
that.
least try. I'm
Yeah.
by no means a saint.
Oh, no, nobody is. And that's also like an encouraging message is like, we all have these talents and these possibilities, but it's our choices. We're not our environment. We are our choices.
Yeah, that's good. And that's like, I think of Tiffany right now sitting there, and I'm like, I'd be like, hey, you have a choice, girl. Like, I think that everybody at some level kind of has like the little devil on one shoulder and the little angel on another. Or you could, if you're a Star Wars fan, you could say the light side of the force, the dark side of the force. And that's totally normal. That goes on. I mean,
Yeah.
I personally, when I was young, thought I was crazy because of some of the thoughts I had.
Right.
But I realized that's just the way we're wired. And so then it comes back to choice. So we have a choice in almost in everything, really, unless something catastrophic like, emergency makes our fight or flight kick off. But even then, like in SEAL team, like you learn to control that so you can make good choices. So choice is an important part of this whole thing in recovery and how you go about it, whether it's mental health or whether it's addiction. And I always say, like, you need to own your choice. You need to realize that's yours. That's part of self-awareness and not being a child anymore. Right. And so that we can shape our environment and future to enjoy it and to live good.
That's so cool. I didn't really even have the conscious thought until I was in my late 20s that I can change my brain. And there's actually a term, and I'm going to read it. It's called neuroplasticity. The ability of the brain to change itself to rewire. The brain is dynamic, flexible biology.
Yeah.
And that was fascinating to me. And I so wish, and that's why I love this dialogue, because if I knew that in my early 20s, that I have the power to change myself, I wouldn't have just been reacting. You know what I mean? So
Right.
Everybody that's listening, take like a second and realize that you have the power to rewire your thoughts. Instead of waking up being like, okay, 2020, man, it's been a ride. It's been like a tsunami wave. No jobs. It's sketchy out here. We don't need to go down the details, but you should wake up and be like, okay, today's going to be a great day. Or you're going to wake up and be like, okay, how am I going to double my income today? Have notes on your mirror, of like redirecting your mind into a positive path. These are the things that you can do to control your destiny in your life and to retrain your brain, which is fascinating to me. And Tiffany, you're 21. You're not going to be like me and figure it out when you're 27. So,
yeah, I mean, that's like my whole goal, hopefully, is to, be able to teach younger people or anybody through my experiences so that they don't have to go through with it and learn the hard way. But you're absolutely right. I mean, again, in the military, people that maybe weren't in my unit, I mean, they have this preconceived notion, but the mind is your greatest weapon. And we're
Right.
taught that in the military. There's a lot of things we do so that we understand that. And sure, there's a physical nature of it, but the mind, period, in human existence is your most powerful asset. And so why wouldn't you take care of it? Why wouldn't you grow it? And science now shows us that neuroplasticity and things like that, you can rewire, and so again, I think that culture has a lot of influence on us, but if you think about it, you want to take care of your brain before you take care of your muscles, so to speak.
Right.
And the rest will come along. The human body in general, let alone the brain, is a fantastic machine and can survive a lot of things. But we also tend to negate, our mental health. And that's one of the reasons, again, that I think it's so important to get it out there, whenever. I don't know when the time will come, but, I would like to see a society that talks about mental health and puts education and things out there so that it's as commonplace as we see in our physical health, right? And it's just not, because it's been this taboo subject, dating back to whenever, and it's kind of silly, to be honest with you.
Right. It is so silly, especially when you're on the opposite end of it and you're looking back and you're just like, honestly, getting help or having these conversations really wasn't that big of a deal. It really,
No.
like I wish somebody did this to me when I was 15, saying, look, it could get really weird or not, but in case it does get really weird, you need to learn to put a mirror in front of yourself and check in. And if you have more issues, like obviously maybe have more professional guidance. But what's interesting is, like, with all of our situations that we go through, people like me and you that are spiritual, it's interesting that God uses all this suffering for good. And hopefully these talks help somebody who's 18 and just starting to figure it out and, is out there doing some crazy stuff right now and be like, maybe I should just like get into counseling and start there, because I'm freaking out right now and there's no predictability. And so I'm feeling unstable and unsafe. And that's really probably what people should really be doing right now. But
well, I think Eric has, his saying, which is a great saying, which is, we're all a little crazy. I mean, that's absolutely right. I mean, that's the reality. Now, we're not necessarily all crazy 24/7, but we do have crazy thoughts. We do crazy things as human beings. And, again, how you deal with it. And I go back to, the first thing you need to understand, who you are, but you also have to own your choices, good and bad, because we have a lot of them through the course of a lifetime.
How did you meet Eric?
We did a pod, it was just,
oh, no way.
Yeah, it was just one of those crazy things. Like, his whole experience and what he's done with it, with mental health, his journey, fit good with what I was trying to do with my pod. And on my podcast, The Dark Side of Elite, I don't necessarily because there's no reason just to focus on veterans, although I'm one of them, because again, it's broader than that. And so I'm always looking for people that have a different background than me. And so, yeah, we linked up, and then you can imagine, like, we started rapping and we just kept going, beyond the pod, and saw some synergy in the two efforts. And, I'm really happy to be an ambassador for Same Here, because of the, what I feel is the importance of normalizing mental health. And I see it a lot on my other job, consulting in leadership and culture dynamics with businesses and teams. This is huge. I mean, there's people that are really struggling in business and they're afraid to take a leave of absence because they're going to lose their job. And that's terrible. Yeah. Right? I mean, if they broke their leg, everybody would be like, oh, okay, put a cast on it. We'll see you in 6 weeks. But if their mind's broken, they're like, fuck, I'm not going to say anything because I'm going to lose this job and I need this job. When in fact, we easily can fix that or get them help, and that's another big thing about me is it's all about people, right? I mean, people are our most important assets. People are involved in everything. And so, you know, we need to learn to create the environments for people to thrive and grow. And that's really what this is, I mean,
Right.
you know, a mental health setback or an addiction setback is just that. You know, you can plant the seed and grow into a beautiful thing beyond it. But again, our society has a lot of ways, choices to cope with it. And most of it is numbing, meaning, you know, you're feeling bad. You take whatever drug, prescription pills. In my case, you know, were like a godsend. You know, I thought they were the greatest thing ever. Had no idea that I was really getting addicted to them.
Yeah.
Nor gave a shit at the time.
Right.
I wanted to block the pain so that I could stay on the assault teams. And, you know, in the end of the day, you're just like, where the hell am I going? Right. And, you know, so you got to be careful with that, because as young people, you know, even high school and younger, I mean, they start to party, they start to feel whatever. Some people have addiction, you know, and they get addicted. Other people aren't addicted, but they're numbing their choices and their thoughts.
Right.
And they're not dealing with them. And, you know, that can lead, and almost exclusively does, if you're an addict, leads to a really bad place, both physically and mentally. And we see a lot of tragedy with that, right? And as I like to say, like, life can be a kick in the balls in general. Don't make it harder, right? Like, don't give life, you know, free shots at you. Like, fight back a little bit.
Right. Own it. Don't let what you own it. It doesn't own you.
Yeah, right.
So, in your opinion, how could we as a society change the support for giving somebody with a broken leg a leave of absence versus a mental breakdown? Like, how could we as a species change that thought process?
Yeah, that's great. I mean,
in your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, what you find, obviously, with say leaders that have those experiences, I mean, they get it. So therefore they create cultures that are accepting of that, and they create you know, the ability for people that work for them to deal with those things. You know, you see it under the title of wellness or even mental health support. And, you know, so therefore they, you know, they buy the insurance, they make sure that it's part of whatever organization they have. But the vast majority of people and organizations still work on the old system, which is the taboo. There's something wrong with you. You know, it's okay to have a broken leg. It's not okay, you know, to be depressed.
Right.
And the normalization and understanding, again, I can only use the body mind reference, that it's one and the same, right? And that taking care of your mind is probably more important than taking care of your body to a degree, you know, or they're equal. And we have to normalize that understanding both through science and really just through cultural conversations to say, hey, you know, this is something that can be dealt with. This is something that I can, you know, offer to, say, employees or people I lead. And knowing that I have a really high chance on the back end of doing something good for, you know, an individual, their family, and, you know, my company, so to speak. You know, what I will always tell people is, you know, whenever you're dead, gone, and buried, nobody gives a shit about how much money you made or what your star power was, how many clicks you had. What's going to exist after that is the people you've touched in your life and what they say about you. And you've either been a positive influence on all the people you've come in contact with, or quite frankly, you're a shithead. It's really not like you're never a neutral. And so I would say, you know, stop at some level thinking of bottom line and materialistic things, and think about investing in people, so that, you know, on your gravestone, you know, it just says something like, was a good motherfucker, right? And that everybody goes around, and again goes, yeah, hey, I learned this from this person or this woman, and we propagate it. Because one thing I know from my combat time is, there's a time and place for violent action to get rid of some other bad violent things in our world. But really, the world is changed one person at a time to a better place. That's my personal belief, and that's what I try to live.
That's so cool. I like to promote the thought of like be your own hero, especially if you want restoration in your life. Like whether it be touching other people, like if you feel good and if you're grounded and aware, then you naturally produce good things to other people because that's who you are. So that's why it's so important for you to really prioritize yourself and your mental health so that all you're producing is good things. So,
Yeah, it might sound chauvinistic. I could be wrong, but again, my experience, women sometimes are a little more pre-programmed than men to be giving at first, so to speak. I mean, that's just a generalization in my experience. But, in the end, we have to be our own hero and take care of ourselves. And sometimes we get that screwed up. I mean, I got that screwed up in service to our country, that my unit was first, my country was first, and everything I did. And, I let it get out of balance to the point where, my own mental health, almost to suicide, to my physical health. And you have to get that right. And so you have to be your own hero and take care of yourself. And when you're the best version of yourself, you then are what you're describing, you're that positive influence, and positive attracts positive, and positive can also help other people. Very difficult to help other people if you're a hot mess.
right, Tiffany. But we love
Yeah.
you, girl. Don't worry.
What is Tiffany dealing with right now?
Um, Definitely ADHD. Definitely. Tiffany lives in Beverly Hills. So,
Nice spot.
right.
But
Yeah.
there's plenty of mental health and issues up in Bev Hills, just like there is in Mogadishu.
Me and you need to sit down with all these elite people and say, look, bro, I know you got a huge ego, but we need to chill out because you're producing a lot of weird stuff right now.
Well, it surprises me that people, I mean, one of the things that is out there, just because of the nature of, we all love to, see a big name person, is, I mean, the stories of tragedy amongst, especially, we'll call it Bev Hills Hollywood people, or maybe elite athletes. I mean, it's out there, and you would think at some level they were on guard, but what I would say is, especially in certain sectors, you're way more susceptible to it, because you have maybe money and fame, and there's a lot of people tugging on your coats. A farmer out here in Nebraska is susceptible to it too, but the stressors are different.
Yeah.
And, and so I always enjoy if somebody has some notoriety or fame, them kind of, one, hopefully not having the issues, but if they do, being open and honest about it, because a lot of people listen to them and can learn. And they're no different. I mean, they're as susceptible as anybody, because of a simple fact. They're a human being.
So the Knights goalie learner,
Yeah.
Like it's these million little things that change our society, where he's like, look, I'm going down the rabbit hole. I have depression. I'm sorry, guys. Like that was so heroic.
Yeah.
So awesome. And I love that. And I love people like that because it was so little, but so big. But
yeah. And I mean, there's other guys, I'll call them macho guys, that were abused as child, like sexually abused. I mean, this is our world, and, nobody's immune to it. And so again, by talking about it and making it more common knowledge is very important, because think of how many, say, young males and girls are in that situation across the planet. Think how many people are suffering from depression, especially this year. I mean, I live in Nebraska.
Everyone.
I live in Nebraska. I can tell you, I mean, I think we're 1.5 million people in the entire state. I have 4 children, high school down to middle school. There has been more mental health crisis this year and suicide attempts and things like that my own children have been, part of, their friends. And I know when I grew up here, like I can remember maybe one.
Right.
So in a year, like wacky year that this is, I mean, all of that stuff is on the rise, and it affects us all at some level.
So I think that this is an important time to realize that we all need to be our own heroes, and that's okay and that's healthy. But I want to know, Mr. Jack, who's your hero in your life?
Wow. I have a lot of heroes.
Who's the person that inspired you to be the man that you are today?
Well, probably if I answer that specifically, it'd be my grandfather and my stepfather that raised me. To strive to be better, to always grow, and not, stick on my laurels. But I would also say, like, currently this moment, like my oldest son is my hero, because thus far he's a good young man. And I mean, honestly, I pray that he stays that way, knowing that, he's got kind of half a year left in my house, and he's going to go out in the big bad world. But he's got a good start, and I can see that, and I'm very proud of him. And he, I see some things in him that I wish, even as his dad, I was doing. Like,
That's amazing.
There's elements that he does where he teaches me, and my wife's always my hero because she's steadfast. But I pick up heroes just all over. I mean, it could just be one sentence, or watch the way somebody handles something. Because there's heroes out there, and they could be the worst human being in the world, but they do one thing in a time and place, and you're like, damn, like that. I want to be like that. I want to learn to do that. But we've got to, again, like we said, I mean, we've got to look, we've got to listen, we've got to be patient, we've got to be open-minded to, being the best version of ourselves. And I think through my journey, and like not only sobriety and addiction and mental health, that by having it as a focus in my life, I'm able to see those things now where maybe before I wasn't. But I've been blessed to have a lot of heroes, but I look for them too. I mean, I really wake up every day and kind of think,
well, you've trained your brain to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I wake up and I really do. I mean, I wake up and kind of think like I'm a bumbling idiot, and I've got to look for help.
We're all fools, okay? We're all fools.
Yeah, we're all a little crazy.
Yeah, but that's honestly kind of fun. That's when it starts getting interesting.
Does Tiffany have any heroes, or is she just lost?
Tiffany is just a lost soul. It's okay though, but you know what? We're going to be her heroes, and we're going to show her the way. We're going to get her in some counseling. We're going to check on her. We're going to do these coffee talks often and be like, actually, no, you can sit down, but I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to have a conversation with this guy. He's getting out. You can be my security though, okay?
Fair enough.
Yeah, you just sit over there and watch it.
Yeah, I watched the big picture.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me, what about your son specifically? Like, what's his projection that makes you respect him and he's your hero? Like, what about him where you look back and you're like, whoa, that's amazing?
I think at the same time in our lives, we're very different. Like he doesn't react to things off emotion. He thinks things through. He's very kind. He looks out for other people. He seeks out diversity. And again, is kind of at this stage in his life, has a very open mind and growing personality. And I think I respect the fact that he doesn't get too high or low in dealing with conversations, whether it be in our house between me and my wife, me and him, It's mature. And again, I hope he keeps that, because that's a very valuable tool. Even today, I tend to fly off my rocker sometimes, and then I spend days beating myself up about it. And, that's not healthy. And I have to kind of guard against that. But that's what I see in him. And like I said, it's kind of cool. I mean,
That's
he takes
so
after his
cool.
mother.
Well, I'm sure it's a whole bunch of million little things that you and your wife have done to make this great little soul. So, yay.
Yeah, I mean, we try hard. I mean, it's raising a family is work, but it's gratifying. And yeah, I guess the way I view the world is all we can do is give them a good start, and they're gonna go through their journeys just like you and I have. But I'll always be there for them. So I hope they know they're loved, and they'll call if they get into trouble. But if they're anything like me, they're absolutely not calling. They're gonna hide it. And
let me figure this out. No, it's more like, let me investigate this. Like, what are you hiding? What's over here? I'm gonna check this out.
The one thing I would tell Tiffany right now, sitting there with I'm gonna call it Johnny Gorgeous, is, be careful what you're chasing. Get to know yourself.
Right.
And maybe if you're not if you haven't figured that out yet, maybe it's time to ask for a check and just walk out and go watch some Netflix and rethink it.
Yeah, like instead of trying to have other people validate you and fill you up, fill yourself up. Like, read a book, go to the library, just go to Barnes and Noble. Don't even buy anything.
Or in Tiffany's case, I mean, like go to Same Here and read some of the blog posts, or some of the stories, or listen to Dark Side of the Elite with Jack Riggins, and you might get something in there that helps out.
Yes, definitely. That's so cool. But I know your son's probably too young, and we don't really drink these days, but I also have this wine, and this is what's super cool is, let's say, for example, if your son was legal to drink, you would put cheers to and write the name of your hero. And it's really not just about the wine. It's about commemorating your son and starting that dialogue of, hey, I want to take a moment to let you know that I think you're a hero. And this is literally Smashberry Heroes wine.
That's pretty awesome. That's good, especially for the holiday season too. Like, get some Smashberry wine and send it out to your hero.
Right. And it's just starting that dialogue of everything's so fast. Let's take a moment to reward good behavior, to even like say out loud. Cause like, especially when you're guys and you're not really like pausing a moment in time. You're like, listen, Grandpa, I just want you to know that you made a huge impression in my life. And thank you for making the man. Like, it's hard to do that. But with something like this, you can have 7 seconds to be like, look, you're my hero. This is Heroes Wine. I'm literally commemorating your name here. Take a picture. Ting, ting. And then there you go. Like, that's like a lifetime memory. And then Grandpa, like all those years of putting in work on you, he knows, like, he absorbed it, he gets it, and I made that impression. And that's touching points on you, on your son, and that's what life's about.
Yeah, you're describing attitude of gratitude. I mean, it goes a long way in mental health, even when you're feeling shitty, is just to call somebody up and say thank you, and kind of get out of your own head. I mean, it's one of the best ways I know to help myself is to be thankful for whatever. Just be thankful to be alive. But I always try to find a person a day that, I say thanks to, or I show some gratitude to, because it's important.
Absolutely. Well, Jack, thank you so much for sitting down with Tiffany and being security and us, like, getting her, clear-minded in a plan. And she's got
there you go.
Support system. I'm going to check in on her next week, and we're going to see what's going on with her and make sure that Johnny Bravo is out of the way. But
yeah, it's Johnny Gorgeous, but I mean, he might be the right guy, but let's pause and take a combat pause and rethink things, and hit me up anytime if you need me to check in on Tiffany.
Absolutely.
And enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and whenever your son is legal, go to
Smashberry.
shopforheroes.com, buy some wine for the hero in your life or some coffee. Maybe your mom, who, I mean, my mom drinks coffee, obviously. Apple don't fall far from the tree. So I'm eating her coffee, but you want to make somebody feel special and let them know that they're your hero. Get some products that promote that.
I agree.
Right.
Sounds great.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your service.
Yeah, thank you. You bet. Appreciate it. Have a great holiday season.
Thanks. You too.
Take care. Bye.
Hey, can you click that and make sure that I don't erase that? I haven't clicked anything, so I just. Yeah, please. That's actually my preference.
So go to